What Seneca would do in a crisis, lessons for today. When life throws a curveball, how do we respond? Do we panic, react in anger, or freeze in fear? Or, do we pause, reflect, and rise above it, like a Stoic philosopher from 2,000 years ago? In today's world of constant chaos, it might seem impossible to stay calm. But Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, faced his own storms, and his wisdom can teach us how to face ours. In this video, we're diving into ancient wisdom for modern times, showing you how the lessons of Seneca can help you navigate crises with grace, resilience, and strength. Quick montage of historical imagery and modern-day stress moments. So, what would Seneca do if he were here today? Let's find out. Stay calm. Stay stoic. Stay strong. The timeless relevance of Seneca's philosophy. Lucius Annaeus Seneca, 4 BCE, 65 CE, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, is known for his profound insights on how to live a virtuous life, maintain tranquility, and cultivate resilience in the face of adversity. His works, particularly his letters and essays, address the nature of suffering, personal responsibility, and how to live a life in harmony with nature's laws. Seneca's writings are not just reflections on how to deal with personal misfortune but also how to navigate the broader societal upheavals that so often lead to crises, both personal and collective. In a world where crises, whether economic, political, environmental, or personal, are increasingly common, Seneca's insights hold immense relevance. While the specific circumstances he wrote about were different from those we face today, the Stoic principles he championed are universal, timeless, and adaptable. In this essay, we will explore how Seneca's philosophy can guide us through the modern crises we encounter. From cultivating mental resilience to making rational decisions in chaos, Seneca offers a framework that helps maintain control and clarity in tumultuous times. 1. Understanding crisis through the Stoic lens. A crisis, by its very nature, is a moment of intense disruption. It is a period of great uncertainty, often accompanied by fear, anxiety, and emotional upheaval. For Seneca and other Stoics, the most important factor in navigating crises is not the nature of the crisis itself but how one responds to it. Seneca repeatedly emphasized the importance of distinguishing between what is within our control and what is not. A crisis often entails events that lie beyond our immediate influence, whether it's the breakdown of the economy, a global pandemic, or natural disasters. What is within our control is how we choose to respond to these events. In his essay on anger, Seneca writes, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This quote speaks to the Stoic belief that our emotional responses to crises are often more debilitating than the crises themselves. Seneca teaches us to acknowledge the fear and uncertainty but also to recognize that our thoughts and perceptions can either escalate or reduce the suffering we experience. By practicing awareness and reflection, we can avoid the trap of letting panic take over in times of distress. Instead, we can choose to cultivate a rational and measured response, maintaining composure even in the face of uncertainty. 2. The role of virtue in crisis. For Seneca, the highest good is virtue, which he believed is independent of external circumstances. Unlike wealth, status, or pleasure, things that are often fleeting and outside our control, virtue is something we can always develop and rely on, no matter the external circumstances. In a crisis, virtues like wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance are the tools that allow one to navigate adversity without succumbing to despair or rash decisions. In On the Shortness of Life, Seneca states, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." This profound insight urges us to reflect on how we use our time, especially when faced with crises. In times of crisis, people often act impulsively, driven by the urgency of the situation. Seneca would urge us to resist this impulse and instead prioritize the cultivation of inner virtues that allow us to make the best decisions in the face of uncertainty. For example, in a financial crisis, instead of panicking or engaging in destructive behaviors such as blaming others or obsessing over the fear of loss, Seneca would encourage us to focus on wisdom, making well-informed, thoughtful decisions, and temperance, avoiding reckless actions driven by panic or fear. Virtue, for Seneca, is the foundation upon which we can stand firm even when external conditions are unstable. 3. Practicing resilience, the art of endurance. Seneca's writings are full of advice on how to endure hardship, whether in the form of personal loss, suffering, or social upheaval. One of his central ideas is the concept of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This Stoic practice involves imagining the worst-case scenario in order to mentally prepare for it and reduce the shock when it occurs. In his letters to Lucilius, Seneca writes, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. By imagining the worst possible outcome, we can prepare ourselves mentally and emotionally for adversity. This does not mean we should dwell on negativity but rather that we should anticipate challenges with equanimity and resolve. It helps us build mental resilience, allowing us to face difficult situations with less fear and more clarity of thought. For example, consider a person facing a medical crisis or a sudden financial downturn. By applying premeditatio malorum, the individual would mentally prepare for the worst, e.g., the illness becoming more serious or the financial difficulties worsening, and in doing so, alleviate the anxiety and panic that might otherwise arise when faced with such circumstances. This Stoic technique encourages proactive resilience. Instead of being blindsided by disaster, we train ourselves to remain calm, rational, and steady, no matter what comes our way. 4. Detaching from the external and embracing the inner world. A major Stoic principle that Seneca teaches is the concept of detachment from external events, material possessions, and the opinions of others. During a crisis, it is easy to become consumed by the things we cannot control, but Seneca would urge us to focus on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes. In Letters from a Stoic, Seneca writes, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In times of crisis, individuals often feel helpless or powerless because they cannot control the external circumstances. However, the Stoic perspective insists that true freedom comes from mastering one's internal world. By cultivating self-discipline and emotional detachment, we regain agency over our lives, even when external events are chaotic. Consider a global crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic. People may feel overwhelmed by news cycles, government decisions, or the uncertainty of the future. However, by focusing on what is within our control, such as our health practices, mental attitudes, and daily routines, we can maintain a sense of stability. Seneca would remind us to detach from external fears and focus on our inner strength. 5. Living in accordance with nature, a guide for the modern world. Seneca, like other Stoics, believed in the idea of living in accordance with nature. This doesn't just mean aligning ourselves with the natural world, but with the rational order of the universe. The Stoic understanding of nature involves recognizing that the world is not random but follows certain laws and principles. When we align ourselves with these laws, by acting in accordance with reason, virtue, and wisdom, we can better navigate any crisis. In On the Happy Life, Seneca writes, "The first step is to know that life is short, and that time is precious." In times of crisis, we often lose sight of the broader perspective. A global financial crisis, a personal loss, or a political upheaval can make us forget the larger arc of life and the many aspects of existence that transcend the immediate. Seneca would remind us to see the larger picture and to focus on the things that truly matter, living virtuously, helping others, and making rational decisions in the face of uncertainty. Living in accordance with nature also involves accepting that crises are part of life. Instead of resisting or lamenting the inevitable, we should recognize that difficulties and challenges are integral to the human condition and thus accept them with grace and dignity. 6. Transforming adversity into opportunity, the Stoic approach to growth. One of the most powerful ideas Seneca espoused is that adversity is an opportunity for growth. In his essay on Providence, he argues that hardships, if approached with the right mindset, can actually benefit us in the long run. The Stoic notion of turning obstacles into opportunities for personal growth is central to Seneca's thought. Seneca writes, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Rather than viewing a crisis as something purely negative, Seneca would urge us to see it as an opportunity for transformation. A financial setback could prompt a reassessment of one's values and priorities, leading to a simpler, more focused life. A personal loss might lead to a deeper understanding of love and compassion. A political upheaval might spark a renewed commitment to justice and societal responsibility. This mindset, viewing challenges as opportunities for self-improvement, helps individuals not only survive a crisis but emerge from it stronger, wiser, and more virtuous. In a world constantly facing crises, this approach is invaluable for cultivating resilience, purpose, and long-term well-being. 7. Practicing practical wisdom, making sound decisions under pressure. In times of crisis, the pressure to make quick decisions can be overwhelming. Whether in business, personal relationships, or in a societal crisis, we are often faced with difficult choices with far-reaching consequences. Seneca would advise us to cultivate practical wisdom, phronesis, the ability to make sound decisions in the face of uncertainty. In On the Happy Life, Seneca writes, "He who is brave is free. He who is brave is not afraid to do what is necessary, whether it is agreeable or not." Practical wisdom requires the ability to weigh all options, consider the consequences, and make decisions based on reason rather than emotion or impulse. Seneca would suggest that in moments of crisis, we should pause, reflect, and avoid hasty decisions driven by fear or external pressures. By training ourselves to be virtuous and reflective, we can navigate even the most intense crises with a steady hand and a clear mind. Conclusion: the enduring wisdom of Seneca in a crisis. Seneca's Stoic philosophy offers a rich toolkit for navigating the many crises of life. Whether faced with personal suffering, societal instability, or global challenges, Seneca teaches us that the key to surviving and even thriving in adversity lies in our response, not the crisis itself.